Hello, Guten Tag, and welcome. How's it going, guys? Radio Magic, back with some magic, bringing you your magic fix. Remember, if you enjoyed the video, you can have your ideas put into action next time by simply doing two things. Subscribe to the channel and comment down below your deck idea, combo, or cards you would like me to build around. Last time we gave mono red goblins a whirl in historic best of one, and I think we were all surprised. It recovered really well against the board wipes and was capable of winning turn 4. I've put a link in the video description down below in case any of you wanted to check that out. Today we're playing a deck focusing on one of my favourite parts of Magic, drawing cards. It's a sickening feeling to look at your opponent's full hand while you're desperately trying to bluff a relevant spell with one planes. Well, feel sick no more, comrade, for I have the solution. Let me present Jolrael's Alliance. The deck is focused around the namesake card, Jolrael Mwonvuli's Recluse, a 1/2 human druid that reads, when you draw your second card each turn, create a 2/2 green cat creature token, and then we can also pay 6 mana until end of turn, and creatures we control have base, power and toughness XX, where X is the number of cards in our hand, so it rewards us for having a lot of cards. It's a really powerful effect that can usually just overrun your opponent on the spot, but how are we best taking advantage of Jolrael? Firstly, with the second part of the title, Improbable Alliance, an enchantment that reads, when we draw our second card each turn, we get to create a 1/1 flying blue fairy creature token. This allows us to go wide and take maximum value of Jolrael's pump effect. Secondly, we have our ramp package with Growth Spiral, a 2-mana instant that lets us draw a card and put a land from our hand onto the battlefield. So while letting us ramp our mana, it's also triggering Jolrael and Improbable Alliance if it was cast on our turn, as with our draw step, it will be our second card each turn. Also, we have the infamous Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath. We all know what this does. It's a 6/6 legendary Elder Giant that draws us a card, puts a land from our hand onto the battlefield, and gains us 3 life. We can then escape Uro later in the game by paying 4 mana and exiling 5 cards from our graveyard. But that is our ramp package. Let's have a look at the rest of the deck. At the 1 mana slot, we have our Alt Art Promo Opt that scries 1 and draws us a card at instant speed, a perfect cantrip that triggers our payoffs on our turn, or in combination with another card draw spell can trigger them in our opponent's turn, as our payoffs read during each turn, not just ours. In the 2-drop slot, we have 4 Omen of the Seas, a 2-mana enchantment that we can cast at instant speed to scry 2 and draw us a card. Then in the late game, we can pay 3 mana to sacrifice Omen of the Sea to scry 2 to improve our draws. Also, we have 3 Fire Prophecies, a 2-mana instant speed that can deal 3 damage to target creature. We can then put a card from our hand on the bottom of our library to draw a card. This obviously synergizes with our draw payoffs while answering problematic creatures. Then we have our 2 payoffs, Jolrael Mwonvuli's Recluse and Improbable Alliance. Then finishing off the 2-drop slot is our Growth Spirals. At 3 mana, we have 2 Ironcrag Pyromancers, a 0/4 human wizard that reads, whenever we draw our second card for turn, we deal 3 damage to any target. It's a solid blocker while acting as removal at the same time as being reach in the late game. We don't want too many of these though, they are a little expensive at 3 mana, however we definitely do want a few copies. Then we have 2 copies of the Royal Scions, a 5 loyalty planeswalker that can +1 to draw a card and discard a card. This helps build the graveyard for Uro. It can also +1 to give a target creature +2/+0 first strike and trample to end of turn. We're not typically using this ability, but it's still relevant. Then it can -8 to draw 4 cards and deal X damage to any target, where X is the number of cards in our hand. Also, we have our 3 Uros, the powerful early/late game finisher. On the 4-drop slot, we have 2 Chemist's Insights, a way to fill our hand in the late game while also triggering our draw payoffs by itself in our opponent's turns. It can also jumpstart, so we can cast each copy twice. We then are going to try a single copy of Teferi's Ageless Insight, a new legendary enchantment from Coreset that says, if you would draw a card, except the first one you draw for your draw step, then you get to draw 2 cards instead. This late game allows us to draw an insane amount of cards, as all of our card draw spells will trigger our draw payoffs in our opponent's turn. A growth spiral now reads draw 2 cards and put a land onto the battlefield. An XX Hydroid Crisis reads instead of half X, you get to draw X. That can just shut the game away instantly. Then we have our Shark Typhoons, a 6 mana enchantment that reads, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, which is essentially most of our deck, create an XX blue shark creature token with flying, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. Or we can cycle it for 1 blue, 1 and X, and whenever we cycle Shark Typhoon, we get to create an XX blue shark creature token with flying. We're basically only using the cycling part of this card, as we just want it as the extra draw effect during our opponent's turn, but we might end up casting it for 6 mana on occasion. Rounding off the deck, we have 2 Hydroid Crisis, a jellyfish Hydra beast that is cast for Simic and X, and whenever you cast this spell, you gain half X life and draw half X cards, rounded down. It has flying and trample, and it enters with X +1/+1 counters on it. I'm sure you all know what this does by now. This allows us to take advantage of our ramp the deck offers and allows us to draw a lot of cards, and in combination with our 4 mana legendary enchantment, it can just draw a large proportion of our deck all in one go. Taking a look at the mana basis, we have 4 Temur Triomes, 4 Stomping Grounds, 4 Steam Vents, 4 Breeding Pools, 4 Fable Passages, they help fill the graveyard for Uro, 2 Islands, 2 Forests, and we have a single Mountain, as it doesn't help cast our Uros, so it can be a little bit of a hindrance, but we might want to fetch it up with Fable Passage. I believe this list is probably going to work better with Bant, with Nissa and 3 mana Teferi Time Raveler. It's probably a more consistent shell. However, I thought it'd be more enjoyable for you guys to watch a non-Teferi list, as I'm sure you've had enough of this card, as have most people by this point. So that's the list, and remember that if you enjoyed the video, you can have your ideas put into action just by doing 2 very, very simple things. Just subscribe to the channel and comment down below what you want to see. Do you want to see a deck idea? Do you want to see a combo? Or have you just got a single card you want to see me build around? And I'll give that a go. Let's jump into some games, and I'll see you at the end of the video. We are on the play. Good opening hand. We have our Jolrael again with an opt to trigger it. Double Chemist's Insight is a little bit clunky, but definitely a way to trigger in our opponent's turn. I think we're going to keep this. I think we want to lay the Fable Passage on 1 to ensure that we won't get stuck on turn 3. So opponent's on mono red. So it's unlikely our Jolrael is going to survive. And that's why we draw a second one. So our opponent doesn't have a shock here. I'm going to cast Opt. I think Pyromancer is going to be quite good at answering our opponent's board. Also plays around Bone Crusher Giant. They won't necessarily have an answer for it. I think we'd rather have the double blue available than the double green. I think we can attack into this. I don't think it's worth the 1 damage though. I don't know what our opponent could have. They are on Rakdos though instead of mono red. So maybe some priests from our opponent. They do have the Bone Crusher Giant. I'm just going to run the second one out there. And we get to attack for 2. If we top deck a land, we can play our Pyromancer into Omen of the Sea. If not, we could always just cast Chemist's Insight in our opponent's turn. Opponent has Eliminate. So opponent's running quite a bit of removal. We did top deck a land. You can go to combat first. If our opponent would like to block, they can. Our mana basis has been quite painful. I think Uro's great and removal spell's good. I think we just like to kill their pressure. Hopefully our opponent doesn't have a second eliminate for the Pyromancer, but we do have Uro. Double Knight. So I think we're going to Uro now. This stops our opponent double blocking one of the cats. Our opponent's going to concede there. Just going to start shooting down their board and attacking with the cats. It's going to be difficult for our opponent to catch up. Okay, we're on the play. Interesting hand. We have our Jolrael. We have some card draw and our Improbable Alliance. I think this is a solid keep. This is essentially everything we want. Okay, we're going to start with a tapped Breeding Pool. So our opponent's on Simic potentially. Maybe Bant. We're going to get Jolrael down now. I think I'd rather have her down than Improbable Alliance on turn 2. I think she generates more value. So unfortunately we drew a second copy. We can potentially discard it to Chemist's Insight later on. If we Growth Spiral and draw a land, we can also Omen this turn. I think it's worth the risk. So opponent's just going to negate that. I think we're fine for our opponent using a counterspell like that. The fact our opponent has negates in the main may indicate it's flash. The fact they're just passing the turn here as well. And fetch a forest. So opponent's likely to counter again. Just cast Omen of the Sea. If our opponent would like to counter this, I think it's fine. If not, it's going to scry us towards a land. I think we want to put both of these on the bottom. Really like to hit a land here. So we didn't hit a land, and I don't think we're going to attack. I don't think the 1 damage is worth it. So Spectral Sailor wouldn't have been able to block, okay. But I'm sure the Flash deck has a number of threats that we don't want to run our Jolrael into. So our opponent can have a number of things here. Probably the most noticeable would be their Nightpack Ambusher. I think we're just going to attack. Our opponent's going to take it. I think we're going to Chemist's Insight in our opponent's turn and try and hit more lands. It will also trigger Jolrael. See if our opponent would like to counter this. They want to rewind that. They get to untap them lands again. Pretty effective here. Ooh, okay. A card we definitely want to resolve if possible. I think we might just pass the turn. Let's go to combat first. Opponent's going to take it. I think we might just pass the turn and run that back, discarding the second Jolrael. Opponent's just going to draw again. We're giving our opponent quite a bit of time here. We really want to hit our land drops. And we want to use our opponent's mana in their turn. Hopefully they don't have another rewind. So our opponent is going to let us draw there. We didn't find a land. So we're starting to build a board state now. Hopefully we find blue. As much as we'd like land. No, I think we are going to keep this. I'd rather hit a land. I think we're just going to cast an Uro as well. I think we're happy if our opponent wants to counter this. We only have the one blue, so we can't trigger Jolrael in their turn. But hopefully we can find a land off this. And we do find a land. I think we're going to put this into play tapped. No, let's put this into play untapped. Let's try and cast Improbable Alliance. This will be able to block the Spectral Sailor if they allow it to resolve. That's a Frilled Mystic. Luckily, our 2/2 cats block that quite well. So let's go to combat. So if our opponent has any interaction here, we won't get to kill them. But if we attack with everything and pump using Jolrael's ability, then they're dead. But I think we're gonna do it over 2 turns instead. So our opponent has to block here as they're dead. So I think we are going to allow this to happen now. Opponent has a Cutthroat. If Teferi's Ageless Insight resolves, it's going to be difficult for our opponent to contend with that. They are going to counter. That gives us an opportunity to cast our Growth Spiral here. And we did top deck a land. I think we are going to put this into play. It's an extra card that will pump with Jolrael. But I think we'd rather have the extra land. So we can cast Uro as well. Opponent's just going to pass turn. We're going to go get another blue here. Let's go to combat. Our opponent has to do some blocks. I think we're happy to make these trades if our opponent will allow it. We can make them 4/4s. Which I think we might do actually. Since we still get to make another 2/2. These non-interactive decks or counterspell heavy decks that once Jolrael hits the board, it's really difficult for them to answer. The board state can really get out of control. It sort of came in under their counterspells. Obviously, if our opponent had a Bone Crusher Giant, this wouldn't have gone down so well. So all 4/4s. Opponent's going to fall to 1 here. Jolrael just really flexing here. She's pulled so much of the weight. Okay. And this is fine. We still get to trade with the Cutthroat. Our opponent gets to draw 2. So we get to trade. They go to 1. We get to opt to make another 2/2. Don't think we need another land. So our opponent's really on the back foot here. They are just going to pass. So our opponent would need to put up 2 blockers here to survive, and we can make all of our things 5/5s. So I think we are going to attack with everything. We're giving our opponent an opportunity to kill Jolrael here. But they need to put out some blockers. Okay, so our opponent has put out their 4 blockers. So we are going to lose Jolrael here. But our opponent gives up their board. So we're going to opt. I think Pyromancer is the reach we need. So if we pump him, our Jolrael becomes a 5/5, which will trade with the Cutthroat. But if our opponent has another instant to cast, then they'll get to survive when we're already trading for the rest of the board. I think we're just going to let this happen. And then see if our opponent wants to counter this. They don't. And then the Pyromancer should be able to finish off our opponent. There we go. Jolrael just really showing her power there. Flexing the whole way through that game. Coming down on turn 2, it was really difficult for our opponent to answer that. And she sort of just took over the game all by herself. How's it, guys? We're back with Jolrael's Improbable Alliance in standard best of 1. This hand's really good. We have double Improbable Alliance, Pyromancer, and a way to trigger our payoff. So I think we're going to keep this. Gonna just start with a tapped Stomping Ground. Would really like these to be breeding pools. So opponent has a turn 1 Healer's Hawk. Our Improbable Alliance is going to match up quite well against that. Do we see a Primate? All that glitters. So that's going to make our alliance a little bit worse. Okay, so we can't play alliance and trigger it. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to get down our Pyromancer. This way, if our opponent doesn't grow the Hawk too much, we have a chance at answering it. And we hope to untap a untapped blue source. So our opponent isn't on the standard build of mono white life gain. It looks like they're trying to equip their Healer's Hawk. If it doesn't have trample, we can block it each turn with Improbable Alliance. So unfortunately we're not going to be able to cast another Improbable Alliance, so we're just going to have to cast a Growth Spiral. There's Uro. We'll put this into play. But since we can't answer that, we'll just shoot our opponent. As of next turn, we'll be able to make 2 fairies and shoot our opponent for free, so we can mitigate some of this Healer's Hawk's life gain. So while we're not taking damage, our opponent is gaining 4 life each time. There's the second Healer's Hawk. So I think we're going to take our 2 first. So I don't know if our opponent's going to be able to give the Hawk protection at instant speed. If they are, then casting Opt is going to be better, because we can cast another Opt in response. If they're not, then Uro is going to be better. I think we don't want our opponent to have 2 powerful threats, so we're going to cast Opt. And if our opponent does something to the Healer's Hawk in response, we'll cast the other Opt. Growth Spiral. I think that's a way to trigger our Improbable Alliances. Try and kill this Healer's Hawk. So casting the Uro might have been better because our opponent can just respond here. And if we cast the second Opt, we won't get the triggers because we've already drawn our second card for turn. But our opponent didn't have a response anyway. We didn't get too punished. I don't think we're going to cast either of these, since as of next turn, we can cast both Growth Spiral and Opt in our opponent's turn to get some triggers, some extra fairies. And eventually build up enough to block this Healer's Hawk. So we'll put 1 in the way. Hopefully our opponent can't give this Hawk trample. They just put Lurrus into their hand. This will allow them to just play out the Hawk each turn, but we can shoot down Lurrus with the Pyromancer. Land here is quite nice, so we're just going to cast Uro. We can almost cast out of the graveyard with the Fable Passage. With the Opt and Growth Spiral as well. Just going to keep going our opponent. We're just going to pass turn and make 2 fairies in our opponent's turn. And shoot down the Lurrus, hopefully. It's giving our opponent priority as we pass for our turn, so they might have a 1 mana protection spell. Sentinel Eyes. Opponent's attacking for 6. We'll block. I think we're favoured the longer this game goes. Let's Opt. Omen of the Sea is another way to scry and draw. I think we will cast Omen here instead. We'd like to try and find another payoff, maybe a Jolrael. This is going to be a way to outgrind our opponent, but we do not need the 3rd Uro. So we get to deal 3 damage and make 2 more fairies. So I think we're just going to Teferi's Ageless Insight and then Omen of the Sea. If this game goes long, we're going to be favoured with this. We just want more ways to trigger our payoffs. We get to draw 2. So we'll deal 3 to our opponent again. With our Teferi's Ageless Insight, we're going to be able to... A single growth spiral will trigger our payoffs on our opponent's turn. No attacks from us. We are getting to a point in which we're going to be able to just block this Healer's Hawk. A second Pyromancer would be quite good. So again, we will throw 1 fairy in the way. So our opponent could be holding up 1 mana interaction here. But they're going to need it on their turn as well. So I think we'll put land into play. And we're going to target Lurrus here. So Lurrus down. Hydroid Krasis with Teferi's Aegis Insight is going to be quite powerful. We have not laid land for turn. I don't think it matters. We can put this into play. Either way, we're going to have to shock in. We will just pass the turn. Triple Healer's Hawk. We're just going to put 1 in the way again. We get to put a land in here. I'm going to start shooting down the Healer's Hawks. So opponent does look like they're just hooking up enchantments, playing evasive threats, and Lurrus is there to get some late game value. So I think we're just going to cast a big Krasis here. So we can cast Krasis for 3, 6, 10. So we can cast it for 8. Our opponent's just thinking about what they'd like to do. An 8/8 Krasis can block their 6/7 Healer's Hawk. And we get to draw an insane amount of cards. And yeah, there's certainly some goodies there. Yep. Let's just play a tap land. And we'll go to discard. The Teferi Aegis Insight really paying off here. Essentially, each counter we put on this is how many cards we will draw. And we drew a second one. I don't think our opponent's going to be able to keep up this value. We will discard another land, Fable Passage, a Fire Prophecy, maybe 2 Fire Prophecies. So we can just cast the Shark Typhoon and start making sharks as well. The Royal Scions can also give Hydroid Krasis first strike. This has not been given trample. Can we win this turn? So we can give all of our creatures +7/+7. I think so. Math is for blockers. And we get to put a land into play. Put in untapped. We could have kept the land in hand actually, just to pump. That would have been a better play. Give all our creatures an extra power. But our creatures are going to get +8/+8 now. I don't think they're going to get 9. Oh no, it is 8/8. Krasis becomes a 16/16 because it has counters on it. Yeah, more than enough damage. Good game, opponent. Good game, opponent. Okay, we are back with some best of 1 Jolrael's Alliance in Standard. This hand isn't too good. We don't have any of our 2-mana payoffs. We can cycle the Shark Typhoons, but I think we're going to mulligan this. This hand, again, doesn't have any of our 2-mana payoffs. We have some earlier ways of finding him. I think we're going to keep. We can start the Triome on 1. Put Forest on the bottom. So against a Witch's Oven, probably Cat combo deck. We're just going to pass the turn. Priest of the Forgotten Gods is going to be quite good against us, unless our Jolrael can get going early. Stormfist Crusader. I think we'd like to Omen of the Sea. We'd like to find one of our payoffs. We have Pyromancer, which might be quite good in this matchup. But Improbable Alliance is going to be more difficult for our opponent to interact with. And there's Improbable Alliance. I think we do want to keep 4th land. I think we're going to play Pyromancer this turn. And then next turn we can Improbable Alliance and Fire Prophecy. Or Shark Typhoon. This doesn't block the Stormfist Crusader though. Our opponent might be able to steal the Pyromancer and sack it with the Witch's Oven. Chemist's Insight might be a little bit slow in this matchup. Our opponent will want to prioritise answering the Pyromancer if they can. And they do claim the Firstborn. Do they have a way? They've already drawn their second card for spells, so there's a turn, so there's no way to activate the Pyromancer. Stormfist Crusader is actually helping us draw cards in our opponent's turn to trigger our Improbable Alliance. Our opponent is going to get some really good value from it, though. They're going to sack it to draw 2 cards. Mana basis is quite painful. So I don't think we want to give our opponent the extra card here. So I think we're just going to do this now. We also get to trigger Improbable Alliance. I think we're going to put land on the bottom. What we could have done instead was activate it in our opponent's turn. Via Prophecy, it would have triggered the Improbable Alliance with the Crusader's ability. So our opponent gets to start shooting down our board here with the Mayhem Devil. The cat is also 2 damage a turn. They get to sacrifice the cat for 1 damage, and the food gets sacrificed to bring it back for 1 damage. They can now do this twice. Yeah, this doesn't look like that good now. We're going to attempt to make a 3-3 in our opponent's turn. We are slowly killing ourselves with our mana, though. Unfortunately, we've needed our land each turn. When the Mayhem Devil attacks, I think we're going to try and ambush it with the Shark Typhoon. We won't get to trigger Improbable Alliance, but it's not that great in this position because the Mayhem Devil can just shoot down the tokens. We're going to take quite a bit here, though. Probably should have held the Fire Prophecy in hand. Foresight is 2020. Okay. I think that's going to be too much for us to handle. Since we have to tap down to prevent lethal here, and then our opponent can just sack in response. Double Mayhem Devil is definitely something that answers our deck quite well, especially with some synergies such as Cat and Oven. It can stop Jolrael, stop Improbable Alliance, and they was able to answer our Pyromancer early by taking it and sacrificing it with Village Rites. So that's going to be a good game. So opponent's going to sacrifice that with the trigger on the stack. Our opponent's taking ages to finish this off. I think our opponent's just messing around. We're going to concede and move on to the next game. This looks like a completely reasonable opening hand. We have one of our 2-drop payoffs. We have some removal, some ramp, and our Pyromancer. We're going to keep this. We'd like to draw a Jolrael and more lands. Turn 1 Fervent Champion for our opponent. That could indicate mono red. I think we're going to play the Alliance. So we take a bit of damage here. Our opponent doesn't get to trigger the Robber. I think we're just going to Fire Prophecy the Robber here. I don't think we're going to have time for Chemist's Insight. Let's play a Triumph. The 1/1 Fairy doesn't block very well. We could have paid 2 life there to Growth Spiraled, put an extra land into play, and then Fire Prophesied. So we cannot block this. I think we're going to take the additional 1. Our opponent gets to light up the stage, and they find a castle. So I think we're just going to get down our blocker and play a tap land. So I think we're going to attack for 1 since we're not blocking. Hopefully our Omen can dig us towards some more threats. An Uro would be really nice. If the Pyromancer survives, it will be able to start shooting down our opponent's board. So our opponent have double Bone Crusher Giant here. No, they have a Shock. I have a Fervent Champion. Okay. Fall to 7. Let's see if we can find something off the Omen. 2 lands. Another Omen. We're going to have to cast second Omen. A Hydroid Crisis. So we could do that for free. We'd get to game 1 and draw 1. I don't think that's going to be good enough. I think we need an Uro. Found another Omen. We're going to have to hold this back to block. So because our opponent activated that, they cannot activate their castle. I think we're going to take 3 and go to 4. We could take 1 and go to 6. I think we'd rather have the blocker for next turn. Opponent has an Ember Cleave. I think that's going to be game. So had we have blocked there, we would have survived. We would have been on 1. I wasn't playing around Embercleave. Maybe we should have been. This is a near perfect hand. We're against a Yorion deck, so they're going to be going quite slow. We have Jolrael on 2, and we're on the play. This hand could probably do with a Improbable Alliance, but beggars can't be choosers. We should have probably fetched after the Temple Scry resolves, because now they know we're at blue. I don't know how much that's going to matter, though. Let's get Jolrael down. Hopefully our opponent isn't suspecting her. And next turn we can start making some 2/2 cats. And what do you know? Improbable Alliance off the top. Let's cast that. Let's opt our way. Land. Land's okay. It does enter tapped. We can cycle and make a 1/1 Shark next turn. This also gives us protection from Teferi, which we could see here, or we could see a Narset. Narset, definitely a card that's good against us. Stops us drawing. But on this board state, we're going to be able to attack her down. Okay, so Omen of the Sun from our opponent. They could be on Luca. So we're going to send 3 at our opponent. 3 at Narset, 1 at our opponent. So we could be looking at a board wipe next turn for our opponent. If we are, we don't want to cast the Shark Typhoon, but it does cycle. Really laid land. I think we want to play the land. I think we're going to cycle the Shark Typhoon. It will force our opponent to board wipe. If they've got it, they'll want to do it. We also get to keep our Improbable Alliance. Our opponent's been put in a position where they need to cast Shatter the Sky if they have it. Tap land. So they might have it next turn.
I know my responsibility. Don't worry.
Okay, bouncing the Jolrael here makes me think they don't have a board wipe. They would definitely want to catch that. Send 1 at Teferi. And 6 our opponent.
This is hardly my worst defeat.
So I think we're going to bite and say to our opponent, we call your bluff. If you have a board wipe, then cast it. It was a strange play, then bouncing it back to a hand if they don't have a board wipe. They might be trying to trick us. Okay, so opponent did have the board wipe. Maybe they top decked it for turn. We get to cast a 4/4 Crisis here. We'd like to find another Jolrael. This Omen of the Sea is not going to be able to block our flyers. They put Yorion into their hand. You're just going to attack for 5. I think we're just going to cast this and maybe get it back. See what we draw first. Royal Scions. I think I prefer playing the Royal Scions as it plays around another board wipe. So we're just going to allow this to enter tapped. No, I think if our opponent's got a board wipe, we want them to use it again. The Royal Scions can help us fuel Uro. So if they do board wipe, we can get it back again. So it allows us to ramp. It makes our Hydroid Crisis better. The opponent does have the Shatter. So we could have left blue mana up, anticipating that they would shatter with Uro, and we get another 1/1. So our opponent could have a counter spell here. So we can cast an 8/8 Hydroid Crisis, and I think we're going to do just that. If our opponent would like to counter this, that's fine. They're just going to sack and scribe. They won't be able to get any value from their Yorion. We also want to get the Hydra down before our opponent plays another Narset. So drawing 4 here is quite good. We get to trigger our Improbable Alliance, hopefully find another payoff. We found another Improbable Alliance. So we need to discard. I think we're happy to discard maybe the Fire Prophecy. It's not going to be too relevant. It can only deal damage to creatures. We also have multiple ways of triggering Improbable Alliance on our opponent's turn now. So opponent's a little bit worried. They're just trying to gain life here. I think we'll play Improbable Alliance. Cast an Omen of the Sea. We put both of these on the bottom. We get to trigger these now. I think we're fine letting our opponent have Elspeth. We'd rather just deal 8 to them. I think we just want to make a 4/4 shark in our opponent's turn and opt to make 2 more fairies. So our opponent is definitely going to take Shark Typhoon. So I think we want to make our 4/4 now, but if our opponent has Shatter the Sky, that looks really bad. If we cast Shark Typhoon now, then they take the Royal Scions and they get to board wipe. We get to draw a card, which means we won't have to cast anything else. We'll get 2 fairies. We get to put them to 8. 6 if we want to play Royal Scions and pump. I think we cast it. So we'll cast it for free, so we can cast an Omen of the Sea. So our opponent might take Teferi's Ageless Insight here, instead of the Royal Scions. If I'd have known we would have drawn this, I would have allowed our opponent to take the Shark Typhoon. But the Royal Scions is definitely a threat. So opponent didn't take it. They are just going to cast Jolrael. So this was another thing to play around. They can now bounce the Oath of Kaya to kill the shark. They probably should have minus their nut. I guess they can't do anything with it. We will Omen here. Pyromancer is a good way to get some reach. And 2 more. They get to kill the shark.
No more than I can escape my shadow.
So this is telling our opponent that they need to block. So if we send everything at our opponent, they block the Crisis and take 4, 6, 6, and they go to 4, 7, and then we can deal 3 here and then 3 in their turn, so they'll fall to 1, so they're not dead. So our opponent, we can't kill our opponent here. Because we can't kill our opponent. It might be worth increases there. Maybe putting our opponent 2-1 is better. Since the Improbable Alliance can finish them on their turn. But then not Elspeth can minus as well. This way, if we attack in this way, our opponent can't minus 3. It'll take 3, falling to 2, so it won't be able to gain life on their turn. And we can still kill them with Improbable... Well, we can kill them on our next turn. If our opponent doesn't have a board wipe or the answer to the Hydroid Crisis, this works out. They do get to gain a bit of life here. So our opponent just blocks a 1/1 token here. We can't kill him with a Pyromancer.
A battle lost, but not the war.
So I think we want to fetch before we cast Opt. Our last basic. So we'll cast Opt. Jolrael's really good here. We get to draw 2. 2 fairies. So we can draw 4 in our opponent's turn with Chemist's Insight. Opponent's going to cast Narset. Once Narset resolves, we won't be able to kill it with the Pyromancer. I think we're going to get as many cards in our hand as possible. But if our opponent has a counterspell, then Chemist's Insight looks a lot worse. So we're going to Opt instead. This doesn't matter because we can't cast Growth Spire because of the basic mountain. So opponent might be looking for a Shatter the Sky here. If they find one, it's going to be quite bad. We'll need to rebuild our board. I think we'll put a land into play.
Those who cannot perceive beyond the veil with thoughtfulness before action.
If our opponent finds a Shatter here, it's going to be less than ideal. Since our entire deck is based around drawing cards. We can't actually put power into play. It was just an omen. So if our opponent has a land drop here as well, then they might be able to find a Shatter. Both to the bottom, so they have this one draw. Did they find a Shatter? Are they hoping to stay alive for an additional turn? Jolrael can double pump next turn. I'm going to cast Jolrael. Land. Should have attacked the Pyromancer. We don't actually have another basic, so fetching with the Fable Passage is bad here. We also can't activate twice because I counted that for having a land. But we do get to go like that. And that should be a good game. Another 21 to our opponent. Negative 21. It's just the power of Jolrael. In the right situations, late game, when you only have 3 or 4 cards in hand, all of them 1/1 fairies get to turn into quite formidable attackers and blockers if in the right situation. But like we saw, if our opponent would have found a board wipe there, Narset would have completely hosed us. So pretty lucky. How's it, guys? Cheers for making it to the end of the video. I hope you guys had as much fun watching the deck as I did playing it. How did the deck run overall? I felt it ran really powerful. There was a lot of moments in the deck that I felt like when we dropped our Jolrael on turn 2 or Improbable Alliance, it was really, really difficult for our opponent to answer it. When we came in under them counter spells against Simic Flash, Jolrael was just a pain in the arse for our opponent to answer. Improbable Alliance did a really, really good job of creating a load of 1/1s, not that great by themselves, but when you're activating Jolrael's 6-mana ability, then 1/1s turn into quite a formidable force really, really fast. Obviously, Uro, same as it always does, it pulls its weight. Hydroid Krasis really did its work, and in combination with Teferi's Ageless Insight, which, by the way, I think was pretty good in the list. If I was going to make the list a little bit more competitive, I'd probably be changing that out for Teferi Master of Time instead. The deck really struggled against removal overall, especially Mayhem Devil. We saw that in the interaction. If you're going to play this in Historic, you get a few extra bits into it. You're not going to struggle with Mayhem Devil as much. It's not really running around as much in Historic. Still there, but it sort of answers our Improbable Alliance, our Jolrael, the tokens. Ironcrag Pyromancer would have been good, especially in the match you guys watched. But if your opponent can answer it, then you're left with not a lot. But the deck ran really well. I really enjoyed it. Things I'd probably change. I'd probably add the 4-mana Teferi in instead of Teferi's Ageless Insight. Just the +1 ability on it in combination with an Opt on your opponent's turn. Just allows you to trigger all your card draw spells just for some extra synergy. And obviously you have the ability to -10 it, which is like an essentially I win the game. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed the video, please do drop it a like. And like I said at the beginning of the video, if you want to see something played, if you've got a deck idea, a combo, or just like a single card you want me to build around, please do drop a comment down below and let me know what you want to do, and I will make sure that I get round to doing that. I kind of want to make sure that everyone's voices are heard and we play as many different things on the channel as possible. But please do drop a subscribe if you're going to do that, and ring the bell, I don't know, whatever that is, and you can be notified on the videos coming up. But that's everything I had to say. Cheers, guys, for sticking around to the end. Make sure you enjoy your day and your evening and whatever you're up to, and I will see you next time.